What's up? It's Willie McGinnis, three-time Super Bowl champion with the New England Patriots, and I'm hanging out with my man Chris Pagliei, okay? Chris does a podcast, 30 Minutes Live with CDP Podcast, every Wednesday and Friday night on Twitter, Facebook, and his YouTube channel. Make sure everybody tunes in, okay, to my man Chris Pagliei's podcast. Again, it's every Wednesday and Friday night on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Make sure you guys check him out.
Anyways, thank you to Willie McGinnis, the three-time Super Bowl champion linebacker with the Patriots. Obviously, I'm not a huge Patriots fan, but Willie McGinnis played the game the right way, and thanks for the opening intro. I'm looking forward to my Live with Pete CDP podcast tonight with my guest for the third time coming on, the Philly sports guy. He's one of the guys who helped me with my podcast and helped me get onto StreamYard for my podcast as well. He's one of Philadelphia's #1 sports fans. And he definitely loves the Eagles, and I'm looking forward to speaking to Jamie tonight, and we'll talk about the Eagles-Washington game. It was supposed to be played originally Sunday at 1 o'clock, but due to the Washington COVID outbreak, I think they have 23 players on the COVID list. The NFL moved the game back to Tuesday night at 7 o'clock at the Link on Fox. So both teams are 6-7, and to me, this is a playoff game. I think the loser will be out of this playoffs, in my opinion. So the Eagles have 4 games left. Washington Giants at Washington and the Dallas Cowboys. So for me, I think the Eagles are going to have to win a minimum of 3 out of the last 4 games. Ideally, I'd like to see them win 4 to get to 10 wins, but I think realistically 3 out of 4. But Dallas, that last game might be throwing it away if they've already clinched the NFC East and that. So that game, you know what? And that game is in Philadelphia. So, but the bottom line is the Eagles need to take care of business starting tomorrow night with the Washington Football Club at 7 o'clock. If you guys can just give me a minute, and I'm going to bring on the Philly sports guy, one of my favorite guests, and we're going to preview the Eagles-Washington game, and then maybe talk a little Flyers hockey and get his opinion on the Major League Baseball lockout right now as well. Okay, guys, just give me 1 second, and I'm going to bring on the Philly sports guy. Hey, Jamie, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, what's up, brother?
Good. Thank you so much for coming on tonight.
Oh, my pleasure. I love coming on with you. It's amazing. I was like one of your first guests ever, I think. And now to see all the different people, you got McGinnis doing your intro. I mean, you've grown in leaps and bounds here.
Like I said, I just I've had help from you and some other people showing me stuff, and it's just basically hard work, good old fashioned hard work.
Yeah, and you know what? There's not a lot of people that know exactly what that is anymore. So kudos to you for doing it, especially during this time of COVID. Things aren't always the easiest to get guests on and things like that. And you've been doing an amazing job. I love tuning into you, listen to your shows. You get some great hockey guys. It amazes me how you get some of these people on there. So I really awesome work by you.
Thank you. I just try to be myself, Jamie, like you and other people have told me, and just reach out to people and don't BS them and just tell them what I'm about. And a lot of these guys have been really great about it.
Yeah, you know what? And that's the good thing about it. I mean, when all is said and done, these athletes are just people. They are just people. Some of them sniff themselves a little too much, but most of them are not that way. Most of them just want to be able to talk like normal human beings. I mean, growing up, as I grew up, like at the Spectrum, my mother and my grandmother worked there. Like I said, I knew a lot of the Flyers firsthand as like just growing up. So when you're with athletes all the time in that manner, then you never get starstruck.
Yes,
and that's one of the things that's really important when you're doing these podcasts and you're going to try to get guests. Is just that you know there's going to be people that you absolutely have loved all your life, and ultimately you just talk to them. It's like having a beer with them, and that's what I like more about it. It's you don't need to talk about the games. They talk shop all the time with the media. I like to just get to find out a little bit about them, and they said it's just like having a beer with them. Yeah, so that's what I find is a lot more interesting to me. than talking about, hey, well, so you did this with football or hockey, and you've done this all of your life, and
Yeah.
I'd rather find out more about them personally.
Well, to be honest, Jamie, I agree with you. When I was in my 20s, I don't know if I would have been ready to do this if we had the technology back then, because I would have been straw stuck. But I took Eric Smith's advice and a few other guys' advice and yours as well. Talk to people like you're at an arena or a football game, and not so much like an interview. And also, I've learned also from you telling me this too, ad lib a little more, because when I first started, I was pretty well all scripted. But now I'm just like tonight. I'm gonna there's stuff I've written down I want to talk to you about, but I want to try to talk to you like we're at the Eagles game at the link.
Right. You know what? And it's good to have an outline and a loose list. You know what I mean? Something that, if things start to go off track, you can bring yourself back onto focus again. But for the most part, conversations aren't scripted. So when you start talking to somebody and then you start to get into the feelings of them, especially as these athletes, if you start to find a niche where they're really passionate about something that has nothing to do with the sport, sometimes you want to sort of go after that a little bit. You get to find out a little bit about them and what makes them tick. And those are types of things that are really amazing to, when you fall into them a little bit. It's kind of cool to see how that all turns out and comes out, in a conversation.
Yeah, and I've done that with even Tom McCarthy, the voice of the Phillies. We talked about the Phillies back in the '80s, and he's a really good guy. And I'm hoping to have Tom on again to talk Phillies baseball and also maybe the NFL playoffs. And I've been really lucky, and I'm working on maybe trying to get some other guys from Philly to come on. Another guy from Philly I had on, John Marks, really good guy from WIP 94, really good guy, and I hope I can get him on again as well. I've been really lucky, but like I said, I just got to keep grinding away, Jamie, and my goal is to hopefully eventually get into radio.
Hey, well, yeah, from your lips to God's ears, make it happen. It's all work. It's all work, but anything that you want, you just go after it and get it.
Well, and one of the guys that kind of inspired me too is Vince Papale. He's the reason I became an Eagles fan, and just his story keeps me motivated and stuff like that. And sometimes I watch his movie just to keep me motivated and keep me focused.
I will be honest with you. I probably watch that movie 3 or 4 times a week. And I won't say I watch it in its entirety because I usually put it on and I fall asleep to it at this point, just because I like the soundtrack and everything else. But there are times when I could just sit and watch that movie, and it just because it gives you a little bit of the history. It's funny because everything is sort of focused on South Philly there, but he didn't live in South Philly. He lived right down the street from me, and his bar is still a bar that's right down the street from me. It's obviously, which is not. It was in Delaware County. He went to Interboro High School, which I went to the opposing high school where we have our Thanksgiving Day game every Thanksgiving. Ridley Raiders versus the Interboro Bucks. And so he was part of that, that rivalry. So he's a lot closer than Philadelphia when you think about it. And of course they had to mainstream some of this because it's you have to change it a little bit. So that's why they put it in South Philly. But it wasn't in South Philly. The bar that he worked at is now called the Tumble Inn. And it still has some of the stuff. Like if you were to go up into the ceiling, you would see the original stuff from that bar, which is kind of cool.
Yeah. Have you had any dealings with Vince at all?
So Vince is also a board member for a group called Yacht Stock, who does a lot of charity work. And I'm also a part of Yacht Stock. I go there as the Philly sports guy, and I'll do interviews and I do some videos and things like that. So I've had very small dealings with him. So we'll say our ships have passed each other on a couple of different, times in our life. But I haven't really sat down and had a conversation with him as much as I'd like to, because he's kind of, he's evolved now into like this public speaker. And that's one of the things that I kind of aspire to, that, as I get older, the Philly sports guy. I can't see myself getting painted up at 70 years old anymore. Like when I get to that age, as much as I'd love to, and I hope that I can still, but as I get that older, I would probably look to do more public speaking and things of that nature. And he's somebody who was able to evolve from an athlete to being the guy, who was, being able to tell the story, to now go around and telling other people and sort of building up other people that you could do whatever it is you want to do with yourself. You just got to put in the work. And that's the story that's his story, and it's interesting because you're going to see something now coming out in the next few weeks, talking about Warner, and how his life, and they have very similar tracks, where Kurt Warner, was bagging groceries and in the Arena Football League and told he shouldn't play and shouldn't play and shouldn't play. And now he's a Hall of Famer.
Well, and I'm trying to go from security guard to behind the mic and behind the camera. And I'm really lucky right now, Jamie. I'm doing my podcast and I'm also doing camera work for the Ontario Hockey League's Guelph Storm. And I absolutely love being a part of a live broadcast because you're a part of a team. It's like being on the ice. And like, obviously I can't play sports anymore because of my age and I'm not in the best shape, but being behind the camera, I feel like I'm back on the ice again.
Yeah, and it's like it says, it takes some time to get readjusted, but it's really just a little bit of practice. It's funny, when I originally became the Philly sports guy and the production company started with me, they were saying you have to start to get yourself comfortable talking in front of a camera. And so like when you start to think about it, like, well, how do you do that? Like, how do you get yourself comfortable? I literally would talk to the mirror and force myself to watch me talk. And then I learned, okay, then I started to put my phone just up and it'd be like, here it is, I'm talking to my phone, blah, 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 blah. And you just, after a little while, you don't worry about how weird you look because you only make up these things in your head that like, oh, I'm looking goofy when I do this. Well, sometimes looking a little goofy is what makes that video great.
Yep.
And those are the things that are hard to do when you don't do it, when you're not used to doing it.
Yep.
And it takes time.
Yep. Can you give me 20 seconds? I forgot to plug in my laptop and I didn't want it to die while we're talking. I usually do everything ahead of time. And tonight I just forgot. Give me 1 second, Jamie.
Do your thing.
Oops. Okay. Anyways.
Perfect.
Yeah. Me bad. Normally, like I said, I have everything going, and I just absolutely forgot. So I apologize for that. Anyways.
No problem at all.
Yeah, because I've never to this day had a podcast where, oops, it died because my battery died. So, anyways, but no, a lot of stuff you say, Jamie, I totally agree with you. And the thing is, when you find something that you want to do, a passion, you also have to work for it. You can't, nothing's given or handed to you.
Well, and it wasn't simple to become the Philly sports guy. I mean, it's like, it's one thing to love your teams. And I've always been the guy who people have known that I've been like overly loud and passionate about my teams, and that the Flyers and the Eagles and the Sixers and the Phillies, and, my ex would kick me out of the house for football games because I was scaring the kids. And it not like I was deliberately trying to scare the children. Yep. It's just that if something happened, I'd get all excited and
you're passionate.
Yeah, you can't do that when you have kids, and it's like I would scare the hell out of them every time the Flyers would score a goal because it would go to nothing to and all of a sudden the kids would jump and run away. So, and I wonder why my kids are not really sports oriented. It's mainly because they didn't know how to deal with me because I am so loud about my passion. I'm Italian, and I grew up as, the only way that you could be heard is sometimes talking over everybody else. So I've never been able to whisper. In fact, I would say that this is probably a whisper for me.
Yeah.
Uh,
I was gonna say everybody has their style. Like I like you for who you are, and like I said, I'm trying to be who I am, and that's what makes us unique.
Agreed. Agreed. And that's why it's like it says it was able to evolve into the guy that gets painted up for all of these games. And and it's fun for me. But it's not just about me. It's about how everybody else reacts. People enjoy watching me watch a game because you are so involved, so that they want to come up and take pictures. They want to come up and share in that experience, and they love it when, especially for hockey games, where I get to start to banter at the goaltenders, and it's like where I come up with some funny stuff because I Google them. I find out a little bit about them specifically, and I never go below the belt. So I never want to, I never go after their family or their kids.
No,
that's not anything. That's not right. You know what I mean?
No.
They're human beings as well. But if I know that they live with mom, I'm gonna be busting their stones about that, or if their girlfriend's really hot, or the other way, they're not really good looking, I'm going to say something about it. You know what I mean? I'm trying to get them thrown off their game a little bit. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But like listen, when the Devils were here and Jack Hughes is out there, and of course I know that he's got a -4, so I needed to make sure that he heard me say, "Hey, how's that -4 treating you?"
Yeah, you know what? And there's nothing wrong with that. And like I said, the difference between crossing the line and what you're doing, and chirping's good. I like to chirp too, and I might not be as loud as you, but I when I watch a game as a fan, I like to get into it as well too.
Yeah, and that's what makes it fun. I love bantering with opposing fans. Either at Eagles games, Flyers games, Sixers games, that banter is what makes things fun. And I tell people all the time, we all get paid the same amount of money to be fans, which is nothing. We get paid nothing. I don't get my tickets given to me. Let me scratch that. I sometimes have friends that will give me tickets to go to games. So don't think that I don't get tickets for free. Sometimes I'm very blessed to have people who want to sit with me during some of these games. So I can get excited about that. But the teams don't put out any money for me. So I don't get paid to go there and start trouble. I go because I like to go, and it's fun for me. And that's why I don't start any trouble. That's why I don't curse. There's too many children around. It's too important to me to, I don't want to bring up, I'm not hating on the other team. I'm loving my team. So, and that's a hard thing for people to understand sometimes, is that when you're cheering for your team, and when I do my videos and I'm saying, hey, that the Flyers are going to kill them today, or the Eagles are going to just destroy this team, I'm not hating on that team. I'm loving on my team.
Yes.
And that's where, because then people want to start to bully me. Well, you're not going to bully me. There's no bullying on me. I'm going to bully you right back. And I'm better at it than you are. So I know what it's like, and I will not tolerate bullying in any way, stretch or form. And I'm really big on that. Just fans against bullying and fans against violence in all sports. There's no need. This is not my mother. These teams are not my mother. I'm not defending their honor. They get paid a lot of money to get there. And if you want to say that my team stinks, you have every right to say so. I have every right to disagree with you. And that's the way it should be. And that's how we can go back and forth and banter. And that's what makes these things fun. That's what makes the games fun.
Well, and that's why I'm so happy doing my camera work again, because I'm back at the arena. I'm back around the players. The players call me the Eagles guy because I always wear my Eagles stuff at the arena. And the guys that are trying to make the NHL and the Ontario Hockey League, they're always like, hey, there's the Eagles guy. And I'm like, I sort of feel like you. And they always bug me like, you like the Eagles? I'm like, yeah. And then I like, as long as you don't like Dallas, Dallas sucks and all this. And yeah,
Yep.
it's just great. It's great being around these young hockey players, and some of them will make the NHL, some won't. But it's just great being in sports arenas again, and just forgetting about the news and all the doom and gloom out there.
Yeah, and that's the hard part, especially since COVID's going up, jumping up again right now, and they just announced, the NHL just announced that they're not going to cross the border right now. That everybody is going to stay on their respective side until after Christmas to see if there's any way that we can just slow it down even a little bit. It's hard right now. It's hard right now, and even with as angry as most of the Eagles fans were about this game being moved, to Tuesday. Really, the only thing that bothered me was that the Flyers were playing that night. So now I have tickets to both the Eagles and the Flyers, and that's the hard part about that, is that I want to go to both games.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan. I love the Flyers, but I'm an Ovechkin fan. I love, yapping at Oshie. You know what I mean? I love, bapping at him. I love going through Google and finding out something about him and then riding him for a little while. I like bantering with the goaltenders.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I know that I'm getting to them because they'll start looking my way. And that's kind of the fun part about that. And to lose one of those games against one of the teams that I like going to see is hard, especially when the Eagles have been doing everything that they've been able to do right. And, Washington, they may have been doing everything that the Eagles have been doing, but they were the ones that got caught with it. They were the ones that had the outbreak, not the Eagles. And we're the ones that are getting penalized for it.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm just worried that what I'm doing right now is going to get shut down. The Ontario Hockey League, they have 3 U.S. teams in Erie, Saginaw, and Flint, and the league's going to have to figure out what's going to happen with those 3 teams coming across to Ontario. And now there's only 50% capacity here at sporting events again. Quebec is now completely shut down again. Montreal can't even have any fans, and I'm really hoping things calm down in the next month, and because I really don't want to go 4 or 5 months again without live sports like we did a year and a half ago, and I don't want to go back to the 2020 again, to be honest with you.
I agree. And I tell you, it's funny that Montreal, that you mentioned Montreal and how they didn't have fans. And of course, that first game was against the Flyers.
Yep.
And Montreal has not had a very good team at all. But I tell you, every time that the Flyers play without fans, I feel that it affects them more than most teams. And I'm not sure why that is, but Montreal, who's not a very good team, although they do happen to have the Flyers number a little bit.
Yep.
They seem to, they were able to go ahead and get the win. And here it is. They've only won 6 games all year long. Now they got 7 because they were able to play against the Flyers with no fans in the stands.
Yeah.
So, these are things that happen. Obviously, it's, the NHL wants to play these games. They want to have fans in the stands, but they want to make sure everybody remains safe. It's the hard part about this, and when it's finally going to hit home with everybody, is if by chance one of these players in any sport passes away due to COVID.
Yep. Totally. And when I do my volunteer work, I have to be double vaxxed. I have to show my papers. I have to wear a mask when I'm doing the camera. And you know what? I'll do whatever it takes to get around the hockey players and being back in the rink again. So even if it's inconvenience wearing the mask, I'll do it for now. I just hope things get better in the next month or 2 and we can get back to normalcy. And like I said, for us, sports is kind of my happy place.
And it's the same with me. I mean, I have, if sports was to disappear again, it changes the way that I am, the way I have to live.
Yeah.
Because I have my whole life, my business and everything revolves around sports. And if there's no sports, it's hard for the Philly sports guy to operate. And that's the hard part with this. So you're right. I am vaccinated, and the NFL was like, hey, If you're not vaccinated, you don't go to the draft. Well, guess what? You hit me with it. There you go. Now I'm vaccinated. Philadelphia is mandated that starting in the new year that you have to be vaccinated to get into any sporting event. Well, I'm vaccinated, so I don't care. It's fine for me. You know what I mean? Now, I haven't gotten the booster, but I don't believe in the booster. I was told to get vaccinated, and I got vaccinated.
Yep.
Boosters have not helped anybody, and I go right to Cornell University, who had 100% vaccination rate, and 75% of the student body had the boosters, and over 900 people wound up getting COVID.
Yeah,
and that tells me that, hey, listen, that may have saved some of their lives because it's not as bad. They're not getting it as strongly as you would if you were unvaccinated. But the fact that 900 people, that school isn't so incredibly large that it's got hundreds of thousands of people. There's only like maybe 10,000 people there. So if 10% of the student body wound up catching COVID, so much so that they had to go virtual classes rather than go live classes anymore, and they were 100% vaccination rate, that tells me that it doesn't necessarily matter whether you're vaccinated or not.
Well, like I said, I'm just crossing my fingers and hopefully things get better and stuff like that. I let people make their own choice. I worry about what's best for me, and I don't judge what other people do or not. I just do what's best for me and my health and all that too.
And that is correct. And hey, listen, with all the people I take pictures with and everybody, it was my duty to go and get vaccinated. I can't worry about what everybody else is doing.
Yep.
But I can worry about myself, and I take extra vitamins and do all the things that I could possibly do to make sure that I remain as healthy as possible, because I am touching thousands of people a game.
Yeah.
People are coming up and taking pictures, and people are coming up and telling me how, stories on how they get to share my videos with loved ones that may not have made it or were real sick. I love it when people come up to me and say, hey, listen, a friend of mine is a big fan of yours, and he's got this condition, and would you please give a video? Similar to Cameo. And I grab their phone and I'm like, what's their name? And then I do that video for them.
Awesome.
That's what it's all about. It has nothing to do with me. It has nothing to do with even the sport. It's how it's how you bring people together.
Yep.
And that's what's really awesome about it.
Yep, being a good person, and that's what I try to do with the food bank and the Salvation Army, give back to other people and stuff like that. Or even when I'm at the arena and the players see me, I'm like, hey, how you doing? Dallas sucks. And I try to just joke around and stuff like that. And it's just be nice to others and give back.
Right. And that's what it's all about. And that's really what it is all about.
Definitely. Okay. I was going to ask you the first question, Jamie. Enough about the COVID. I know it's going on and stuff, but I kind of would, we'll get on to that after. But I wanted to ask you, what's your overall thoughts on this 21 Eagles season so far after 13 games?
I feel that we lost a few games that I wish we could have back. I wish that the curve happened faster than it did. In terms of Nick Sirianni learning, Gannon learning, where instead of doing some of the defenses, I feel like that if we had the 49ers game back and we had really the San Diego game back.
And the Giants game too.
San Diego. The Giants was a little different. And I'll explain that in a little bit. Not San Diego, but the LA Chargers. I feel that those two games specifically, we could have won. And the fact that we didn't, it was something that could come back to get us. I thought that Tampa Bay really had control of that game the entire game. I felt the same way with the Chiefs. We needed to be able to score touchdowns. We couldn't take 7 points and transfer that into 3 points. It doesn't work that way when you're playing against those teams. And that's what happened. Instead of kicking field goals, we needed to score touchdowns. And that was why we lost that game. And the same thing with the Buccaneers. we needed to be able to score touchdowns, and we just didn't do it well enough.
Yep.
Well, when it comes to San Francisco and the Chargers, I felt that this is where they were coaching losses. And for the 49ers, I could almost excuse because it was early in the season, but I said it again. The Chargers game was definitely a game that could have been won. And the fact that we didn't win that is something that, I think that's what's going to stop us from going 10 games or even 11 games. The Giants game, I felt, was different because the energy from the Giants stadium was actually a little bit more electric. And because of that, I felt that the defense of the Giants really fed off of that. We had our opportunities, but realistically, I thought that the Giants won that game, more than, I guess really it was a matter of who wanted to lose at least. And they were the ones that didn't want to lose at least. We were making too many mistakes that just needed to get resolved faster, and they didn't.
Yeah, and also 4 turnovers. You can't turn the ball over 4 times in the majority of NFL or CFL or whatever college football games and expect to win. So they got to clean that up, make sure there's no turnovers tomorrow night. One thing, Jamie, I know you're big on Quaz Watkins, but I'm a Jordan Howard fan, and ever since they brought Jordan Howard back, I'm not saying he's 100% responsible, but having him, Scott, and Sanders, the running game has been great the last 6 games. I think they're averaging 175 yards a game the last 6 games. The first team to do that since the 85 Bears. And I'm a big believer in having a balanced offense. And now that the Eagles have their run game established, it would be nice to see Hurts get a little more established as a passing quarterback. And I would like to see your boy Quaz Watkins get a little more action as well. Jalen Reagor, I think he's got a lot of talent. But to me, he reminds me so much of Nelson Aguilar. Sometimes he'll make a great catch, but he can't make the other ones he should make. And to me, the Eagles next year are going to need to address their number 2 wide receiver spot.
Well, I agree with a lot of what you say there, except I have changed my thought process a little bit about how this goes. So I'll tell you that Howard was the guy we missed the most against the Giants. That was the guy who we missed the most. If we had Howard for that game, we win that game by 14. We win that game going away. The fact that we did not have Howard was, I felt, part of the reason why we lost that game. So I agree with you 100% on Howard, that even in the midst of this, we are rushing, in the last 4 games, it was 176, 201, 260, and then 220 yards rushing. When you're rushing that much, you're a prolific running offense.
Yes.
And there's no such thing. No one's ever heard of a prolific running offense. It's a prolific passing offense. But the problem is that we're not built that way. Our offensive line is able to thrust out and take care of business, and then also get into that second tier and take care of business, that we're able to just knock guys over. And that's what makes us so good at running the ball. Quez Watkins has got all that speed, but we don't have anybody who's got the arm strength to throw it. And that's Minshew too. I wasn't really impressed, even though he did a good job during the Jets game. I wasn't really impressed with his arm strength. I felt that realistically, he's got a little bit more strength than Hurts does, but not a tremendous amount. And that's going to play a big part on how Quez does moving forward. I think Quez Watkins could be the number 2 receiver, but it doesn't matter if you can't get the ball to him fast enough.
Do you think Hurts eventually will have that, or you just think he'll never have that arm strength? Obviously, he doesn't have an arm like Josh Allen and stuff like that. But I was going to say, I still overall think the Eagles at least have found their identity, because too many teams try to not go to work to their strengths. And the Patriots know what their strengths is running the ball. The Eagles have figured out what they have to do. The bottom line is to win football games. And right now, the Eagles' best way of winning games is to run the ball and stop the run and play good defense. And the way they've played the last 6 weeks, they could easily be 5-1 or even 6-0.
I agree. And I feel that their identity is running the football. I will say that arm strength is the one thing you are unable to teach a quarterback. And that's going to be the problem for Hurts moving forward. It's just that he's going to be able to be a game manager. And when you start, I'm not putting these two in the same category, but when you compare him to other quarterbacks who didn't have really great arms but had much better accuracy, Joe Montana being one of them.
Yep.
Joe Montana was fantastically accurate, but he couldn't throw the ball 40 yards down the field. I mean, he could sometimes if somebody was wide open, but other than that, he wasn't that guy who was going to split defenders and get that ball 50 yards down the field. He was going to dink and dunk. And, if Hurts can be 3/4 of what Montana is, we're going to win Super Bowls. So I'm trying to be realistic. Well, it's like I'm saying that there's no way that we're going to be able to see that. And, with Hurts is not going to be Joe Montana. Joe Montana was Joe Montana, but I need Hurts to be Hurts and do well.
Yeah, one thing I see, the guys seem to like Hurts. They generally like him, and he seems to be a good leadership. Overall, yes or no, Jamie? Do you see him being the quarterback of this team next year and beyond?
Next year, yes. The and beyond, I can't answer that.
Okay. I was going to say, and the Eagles have 3 number 1 picks this year, it looks like. I think Carson Wentz has had 75% of the snaps with the Colts. So it looks like the Eagles are going to be getting a lot of draft picks in the first round next year.
Yep, we're going to get 3. And I mean, obviously, Miami has picked it up. So they are 7-7 now, and they're fighting for, I think they're in the playoffs right now.
Yes. Yeah.
I believe that the Colts are also in the playoffs right now. And then, of course, the Eagles are fighting for the playoffs. So it's possible that all 3 of those teams could wind up having playoff spots where initially we were getting the 2nd, the 3rd, and the 6th pick. And now we're getting, now we're in the 14, 15, and 18 range. So it's going to be interesting to see how this all winds up at the end of the season.
One thing about this NFL season, there is no dominant teams. There's a lot of good teams, Jamie, but I don't see one team that's invincible. I think Tampa Bay can be beaten. I think the Rams can be beaten. Arizona got destroyed by Detroit yesterday, 30-12. The Cardinals, there's some issues with that team as well. And then New England lost. And I just find there's a lot of parity in the NFL, and it's really up for grabs for who could win the Super Bowl or even get to the Super Bowl. And I think the playoff positions aren't going to be decided until the end of the season.
Yeah, and think about everybody was talking about how bad the Chiefs were at the beginning of the season.
Yep.
And now they're like, it seems like they're the only team that looks invincible.
Yeah, they've reinvented themselves. Offensively, they're still not what they were like the last 2 years as a powerhouse, but I think defensively they've been really solid. And if they can keep Frank Clark healthy and keep that defensive front 4 healthy, and Mahomes is Mahomes, you always have a chance to win with them. Kansas City, and if they can get a home field advantage in the playoffs, that will help as well with Kansas City. You're right. A lot of us, including myself, wrote the Chiefs off earlier in the season too soon.
I agree, and I kind of expect that they are the team to beat in the AFC, and the NFC is really hard to really see because I think about how Green Bay got lucky. They just straight out got lucky. What's going on with Baltimore is like a rouge.
Yes.
So that's the second game in a row that Baltimore decided to go for 2 when they missed that 2-point conversion, both on terrible play calls.
Oh yes, absolutely. And they're 2 for 8 this year on 2-point conversion. The thing is, give your team. You got to give your team a chance to win the game in overtime. And to me, he should have kicked the extra. I personally would have done it, kicked the extra point in both games. If you happen to lose in overtime, okay, so be it. But to lose on a game on a last play on a 2-point conversion when you didn't really need to do it is unacceptable. And he should be under some heat in Baltimore for that.
You know what? There are two ways I look at that. Yes, I agree that there should be some flack that you get because you decided to do it that way. The other thing that I think about is that you lost those games, and you're right now. Cincinnati has got that division. Right this very second, they're number one in that division. And truth of the matter is that I don't think Cincinnati's strong enough yet to be able to win the division. I think, especially since they got another game with Baltimore that they go up against, and I think Baltimore is going to win these games going away. That him losing these two games gives them is almost like, hey, he put his own team on notice. Like, hey, there's never a time where we could sniff ourselves because we're beating ourselves, including the coaching staff. The coaching staff. I mean, there was two horrible calls, for those 2-point conversions. Both of those plays were PU. And you just can't do that. You want to go for a 2-point conversion and maybe win the game. I can understand that. I can appreciate what it is that you're trying to do.
Yeah.
But you better make a better play call than that.
Yeah, both of them were brutal, and like I said, those two games are going to come back to bite them at the end. So we'll see what happens there. But like I said, the AFC, Kansas City's looking good, and then it's everyone else. The NFC, even the Packers have issues. I think the Packers are a good team, Jamie, but they're not invincible. Same with the Rams. I think there's two dark horse teams I watch out for in the playoffs. In the AFC, the Colts because of their running game with Jonathan Taylor, but I'm not sold on Carson Wentz, obviously. And then in the NFC, the San Francisco 49ers are playing really good football right now.
I also, if the Eagles are to make it in, it's going to be interesting because the defense is really going to be what sells it, and the fact that they can run the ball. Running the ball, when they run the ball, that means you're going to wind up getting more time of possession. If you're winning the time of possession battle and not turning it over, you can't turn it over. That's the big deal. It was what killed us a little bit with the 49ers in the 49ers game. It obviously killed us in the Giants game, but realistic, and even in the Dallas game, they turn the ball over. You can't turn the ball over. Got to have those clean sheets.
Well, and Washington had that problem against Dallas last week with their running back Gibson turning the ball over as well. And he does worry me in this game because he is a good running back. And that's going to be one of my questions later to you about this podcast is it's going to come down to, can the Eagles run the ball against Washington and can they stop the run? And that's what it's going to come down to, the O-line and the D-line in this game.
As it always does. That's where championships are won. And I feel that right now, I mean, obviously, what's his name is out now with COVID.
Landon Dickerson, I think.
Correct. Yeah. And that means we're going to have. I'm not sure if Brooks is going to be able to be back for this game. I know that they were talking about possibly having him back, but is he definitely going to be back? I don't know that answer. Because it's like now we're short a couple of guards. So are they going to move? How are they going to move that? Because obviously Dillard is not somebody who can play guard. He can only play left tackle. And that means you're going to be moving. Are you going to move? What's his name in Mailata into guard? I don't know that you can do that. So I kind of expect that they're going to have a lot of big here. Where you're going to see Dillard come in, I believe, and be like tackle eligibles. Where you're just hearing them announce the tackle every down. Like, hey, this number 67 is eligible or 68 is eligible. And just continue hearing that. So because they're going to need to be able to have that extra, offensive lineman there to be able to help out. Because Washington's got a great defensive four.
Yes.
And you can't have them if he's only at 80%. If Hurts is at 80%, I mean that means that there's 20% that he's bad. You don't want him to take a lot of hits.
Nope, definitely. And what concerns me in this game, Jamie? Okay, Washington's got 23 players on the COVID list. A lot of guys out. We don't even know who their quarterback's going to be. But they have a coach, Ron Rivera, who the players love this guy and will play hard for. And I'm just hoping the Eagles don't have a letdown or a bad first quarter against Washington. They need to have a good, strong first quarter and not get behind in this game. And that's what worries me.
Yeah, I disagree a little bit that the
Yeah,
first quarter is going to do it. I think that there's going to be some rust. It's like now that
absolutely.
it's 2.5 weeks that they have been out there. So now you're going to have a little bit of rust that has occurred. So I don't expect that they're going to be able to just go right down the field and score a touchdown right out the gate. I think that they're going to
Okay.
wind up going 3 and out, and that the defense is going to have to be the one that comes through in the first quarter. And then
Absolutely.
and then it's going to take a minute. I think that after that first quarter, they're going to start to get the offense moving. They're going to get those first couple of drives are going to be necessary to knock the rust off of everything. And then they're going to start hitting their groove, and then they're going to start running the ball. And do I think that we can run on the defense? Absolutely. We've learned that we are able to run the ball on the best defenses out there. The Chargers had the number 1 rushing defense, not after we got done with them. The Saints had the number 1 rushing defense, not after we got done with them. So there are lots of ways. Denver, same situation. Nobody can run on Denver. Guess what? We ran all over Denver. So those are the things that are going to be important. This is a division game, and as of right now, Nick Sirianni hasn't won a division game. So we're going to need that division game. We're going to need to win this game. And we got to do it with how we know how to play, and that's smash mouth, running
Football.
up the gut football.
Run the football and stop the run. And hey, the last 4 games are against NFC teams: Washington, Giants, Washington, and Dallas. And I don't know if you agree with me, Jamie, but the Eagles need to win a minimum 3 out of these 4 last games to at least get to 9 wins to give themselves a chance. Ideally, it would be nice to win these last 4 altogether.
I agree. I had the Eagles going 9-8 at the beginning of the year and was laughed at. And now it looks like that we're going to, now I kind of believe that we are going to go 9-8. I know that the Giants have sat Jones. He's probably not going to play for the rest of the year.
No, he's out. Yeah, he's done. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's that. And Gannon is nothing. I mean, I don't know why they took so long to even pull him for the other guy. I know that the other guy has not been in the league for very long, or if he has been in the league for very long, nobody knows who he is. But just you needed some type of spark, and there was a little bit of a spark, but then it was just like, okay, it was too little too late.
Yeah.
So
the NFC East, it's going to be interesting these last 4 games. So just but we got to look at just one game, 1 quarter at a time. Take care of Washington, and then we'll worry about the Giants. And just we can't overlook Washington right now. And I think it's going to be a tough. I think it's going to be a tough game tomorrow night.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, how many of them are still going to be out with COVID?
Yes.
That's the hard part. I heard that they had 4 defensive linemen come back, and then that was it. I didn't hear about anything else. I've heard about us getting somebody on COVID list, but and who knows if they're sick. That's the problem with some of this, is that we're not able to tell who's sick and who's just in protocol.
Yes. So we'll see. We don't even know, and Gannon's got his work cut out for him because they still don't know who the quarterback's going to be.
Correct. I mean, I think that you could play for Heineke. You make sure you're playing for Heineke. If you don't get Heineke in there, whoever you're getting is definitely behind him. You know what I mean? That they're not going to have. They don't have a Hall of Fame quarterback as the backup to Heineke. You know what I mean? So
definitely.
So I got to imagine that you just plan for Heineke, and if you don't get Heineke, that's probably a benefit to you.
Okay, and that leads to my next question, Jamie. What are the 3 keys, in your opinion, to an Eagles win on Tuesday versus Washington? And is this an absolute must-win for Philadelphia tomorrow night?
If you want to go to the playoffs, yes, it's definitely a must-win. We can't lose another game in the division. And if that's going to be the biggest deal. That's really the biggest deal, specifically for the fan base and Nick Sirianni. You got to win your divisional games. As of right now, you got your butt handed to you by Dallas. We didn't put out our best foot forward against the Giants. You've had 2 weeks to prepare for this team. Plus, now you better come out and show what you've got, And so I feel like that this is a must win. Not necessarily, if we don't make the playoffs, we don't make the playoffs, and that I'm okay with that this year because it's already the fact that we're talking about the playoffs at this late in the season.
Positive.
Exactly. That all being said, I want us to make the playoffs because I want these guys to get the experience of what it's like being in a playoff game. That all being said, if we don't make the playoffs, it's not the biggest deal in the world. However, I want to see Nick Sirianni win a division game. You need to be able to make sure that you have your team prepared. You've had the time. This team on paper is better than Washington. We should show that. And if we don't, if we lose this game, this is going to have a ripple effect moving forward.
Well, I've got the Eagles winning 24-13. That's how I see it going tomorrow.
Yeah, I got it somewhere. I had it somewhere close to that. I had a 27-13, 27-10.
Yeah.
I don't think Washington can score a lot of points.
No.
And I think that the Eagles are going to get a defensive touchdown, or it's going to be a defensive turnover that's going to lead to a very easy touchdown. Something like that's going to occur, and that's how we're going to get some of our points. I feel like that the Eagles have to just keep a clean sheet.
Yeah.
No turnovers, and just make sure that when out there on defense, you're not going to let up the long ball. Or not let up anything like big plays. As long as they don't have any big plays, they're going to get a couple of first downs. They're not going to get shut out. It's going to be a divisional game. I think it's going to be closer than what the score predicts. Like I said, 27-10, 27-13, but I think that it's going to be a defensive score later in the game. I think it's going to be a tight game and a tight battle in the very beginning, all the way through to the third quarter. And then in the third, fourth quarter, we're going to start to pull it away.
Well, Darius Slade, he's played the way he was in Detroit last year. I don't know, maybe it took him some time to get used to being in a new system in a new city, but Darius, big play Slade. I expect another big play for him tomorrow night. And it really helps the offense too when the defense can get turnovers, give the offense a short field, or even put points on the board so it takes pressure off the offense to do everything.
I agree. Well, you know what? I feel like Gannon finally started to use him the way that he should be used. I feel like up until midway through the season, he was in the zone. Like instead of doing man-to-man, he's a man-to-man coverage guy. And you need to put your guys in the best position to succeed. So if that means everybody else is in zone and you got one guy man-to-man with your best guy on best, and then you got everybody else in zone. Well, then at least you're utilizing your guys the way you need to. Yeah. And I feel that it took a minute for Gannon to figure that out. So now he's actually got him, and that's when you're seeing Slay start to do stuff now. And he's excited about playing again.
Yes.
At the beginning of the season, he was not really excited.
No.
He was having a hard time with everything that was going on. And I think that when the coaching staff started to listen to the players, sometimes that's the way to evolve. I mean, I know that you want to do, as a coach, you want your system in place and you want everybody to follow your system. But sometimes you got to listen to your players to make sure that you understand what it is that they can and can't do. And I think initially he was not listening to them. And then he started to listen. And as he started to listen, it started to make changes and things started to get better for the defense.
Okay, and that leads to my next question, Jamie. And 1 second, I'm just going to bring this on right here. This one, thoughts overall on the coaching staff, Sirianni, Gannon so far, and also management ownership. And are you happy with the direction this franchise is going currently?
Yes, I am happy with the direction the franchise is going. I felt that that the offense was going to need 6 to 8 weeks to get their stuff together. And it took them 6 to 8 weeks. It's scary when I'm right. You know what I mean? When I start to be like, I know that this isn't, this is the first time Nick Sirianni is doing this. It was going to take some time to get his legs under him, and he did. I thought that Gannon would be a lot more better prepared, and it was a surprise how much he wasn't initially. But again, the learning curve has started to, fall into place now. It's like, okay, we tried doing things this way. It didn't work. We started to do things this way. We thought maybe I could go backwards a little bit and try to get them the way I wanted to. Didn't work. Go back to the way that we were doing it when we were winning games. And next thing you know, and I'm hoping that that's what he has been able to do, that they've been able to move forward together as one unit, team and coaching staff, to be able to win out. It's going to be great. It's going to be interesting because I've said for a few weeks now that I think that the Dallas Cowboys are going to be who we play in the playoffs, which means that we're going to be playing them back to back. And it kind of looks like right now that we're going to be playing them back to back. Where we're at home, and then we're going to go to Dallas. So it's going to be an interesting way of watching that. So game 18, week 18 is going to have some implications, but I don't think Dallas is going to play their people. I think they're just going to rest themselves and see what's going on with the Eagles so that they can get ready for the Eagles when we go back over there into Dallas again.
Yeah, we just have to, like I said, take care of business tomorrow night, and then just one game, 1 week at a time. But we just have to keep playing good football, like you said. Run the ball, stop the run, and the defense is going to have to make some more big plays too with
and remain healthy.
Yes.
That's a big deal. Remain healthy. Yeah. I know that they get into routines and that they're going to be, okay, now you're only going to have a 5-day week, but you're going to need to take Wednesday off. You cannot have them go right back to practice again on Wednesday, which means that Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, you're going to have Thursday and Friday are going to have to be the practices, and Saturday is the walkthrough, almost like you're preparing for a Thursday night game. That's what this is going to be like. And they got to get themselves together, but they got to remain healthy. Getting hurt right now is going to be the worst thing in the world.
And it looks like Sanders is going to be playing tomorrow night too. Yes, Sanders. And what's Dallas Goedert? He's, I guess, cleared to play too now, right?
As far as I know, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that'll be huge too. So you're right. We're going to have to cross our fingers too, because you're right. Injuries can really hurt you. And look at Tampa Bay. They lost Chris Godwin to a torn ACL last night. I believe Mike Evans left the game with an injury, and then they had another key player hurt too as well.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, they have a good running game, but obviously – they were able to key on him last night so that they didn't score a point. And shut out Brady is a big deal.
I was going to say this. It's only the third time in his career he's been shut out. First time since 2006. And 2003, Buffalo shut him out 31-0. Tom Brady now has played New Orleans in his career 9 times, 4 wins, 5 losses. 4-1 as a Patriots quarterback against the Saints. But in the last 2 years, 0-4. So you know what?
That's only regular season though, because they did beat the Saints in the playoffs.
Yes. So really, he's 4-5 in the regular season, 1-0. But still, the Saints seem to have the answers for Brady, and that's playing great defense and putting pressure on him. And I think a lot of teams might copy that game plan the Saints had last night against Brady and the Bucs.
Yeah, but everybody's known that. You have to get Tom Brady moving his feet. Yep. You got to send it right up the gut. Yep. That you got to A-gap and shoot up that way so that you'd be able to get him moving his feet. And if you get him moving his feet and uncomfortable, he's then going to cause problems. So he could throw as many of those friggin' things that he wants to. He was all pissed off throwing the surface. Because it's not the surface's fault. It's your fault, Tom, because you don't know how to play he's 44 years old. You don't want to get hit. No. You don't want to get hit. And he was getting hit.
But he's lucky he didn't play in the NFL in the 70s, 80s, or 90s. Because a lot of guys, his career would have been done at 31, 32. Thing is, with Tom Brady, he's one of the greatest. I'm not going to argue with anyone there. Anybody can be a good winner, but when he loses, he doesn't take it well. Nobody likes to lose as an athlete, but show a little class even when you do lose. And that's my issue with him.
He's got a little bit of Jeff George in him.
Yes. Yes. Totally. So, yeah. Anyways, and just got a couple more questions for you, Jamie. And I wanted to ask you. Anyways, what's the latest on your Philadelphia Flyers Sixers so far? And what were your thoughts on the Flyers firing head coach Alan Vigneault and appointing Mike Yo as their interim head coach for now?
I think that it was definitely time for AV to go. He had lost the locker room, and that was the big deal. I felt that. I mean, Terrian and the coaching staff, they just how long? I think I said to you from the very first podcast that I am angry and upset at the special teams of the Flyers, that the penalty kill and the power play stink out loud. And AV was a better coach than that. Like, you just, when you go back and you look at the teams that went to the Cup under AV's reign, in Vancouver and in New York, they had spectacular special teams. And the Flyers special teams stunk. And I blame that on the assistant coaches. But, there's only so much that you can blame on that. Eventually the buck stops with the head coach. And it really was starting to wear. When you get through 8, 9, 10 games losing streak, and it's like and that was his second 10-game losing streak.
Wow.
Under his in his career with the Flyers.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So that tells me something. And Mike Yeo is not, or Yo, or whatever his name is. I don't know that he's the answer either. I mean, obviously he had some dealings with the general manager when he was up with the Wild. I'm unhappy as a fan of the Flyers right now, because I feel that it's time for real ownership to come into Philadelphia for the Flyers. I'm tired of it being a Comcast entity.
Corporation. It's sort of, I know this is different, but it's sort of like with the Blue Jays. They're owned by a corporation, and most corporations' mandates, this is my opinion, is to make money and profit and not necessarily championships. And I think there's only a few teams in sports that are owned by corporations, and a lot of them don't win championships. And Jamie, I agree with you there. And like you said, and I have a name in mind for you, but I don't know what you think this name. He is a great coach. He's won a Stanley Cup. He's won 2 gold medals. Mike Babcock. What about the possibility of bringing him in? He's coaching the University of Saskatchewan Huskies right now, where he's from. But I'm wondering if he'll get another chance in the NHL.
I don't know. I hear that name and I cringe.
He's a winner. He wins. The only problem is he's alienated a lot of players because he's old school. And nowadays, this, Jamie, as well. These athletes, you can't treat them like you did back in the 90s and 80s.
That's the problem. I mean, it's just like it's the time. And you're gonna have to excuse my language here, but the time of the asshole coach is gone.
Yeah,
you can't do that anymore.
No.
And it's like I if that was the case, then I would have Mike Keenan be back again. Yeah. It's like, and I think of Babcock, and I think of the things that I've heard about him as a coach, and I'm thinking, I'm like, what? Who would want that guy here? They got rid of Hextall as the GM because of some of the challenges he was facing. You were facing as an organization. That it's one thing when you're winning and everything, winning solves all problems. But when you ain't winning and you got to deal with somebody who's just not making you feel good, then you got a problem. I mean, ask the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Oh,
I mean, now there's the epitome of what you have when you have an asshole coach. And I look at Babcock the same way.
Yeah.
I think about the fact that they were probably, they're probably going to interview Tocchet, and I'm like, I don't know that I want to have Tocchet here. Actually, if I had my way about me, I'd try to get Chief back here. You know what I mean? And try to pull him from St. Louis. just because I feel like he would be the guy that could actually get this team motivated and moving in the right direction. But I don't know what the answer is for the Flyers. And to be honest, I feel like that this team has got to blow up. That as much as I love Giroux, and I feel like Giroux is going to go get a chance to go get traded this year and go fight for a cup this year. I think that that's going to happen. I also think that he'll be back next year. I think that he'll come back to Philly after the fact. But I feel like everybody else, short of Provorov, and I really like Rasmussen. You know what I mean? Obviously, I think that Ristolainen. I thought that he was a great addition this year. But everybody else could be on the block, minus like a couple of the young kids. But everybody else, like TK, I'm sorry, it's time for you to go. You know what I mean? I love TK. I've got a jersey of his. I don't buy people's jerseys unless I love them. You know what I mean? So I feel that way about it. But he's not even chirping on the ice. You know what I mean? And that was where he did best. But the chirp, you got to do the things you got to do. You got to do those other things. You got to get the points. You got to score some goals. You got to do all that. And he's not being able to do that, which means it's taken away from his game completely. And I feel that it might be time for him to move on and be better somewhere else. I feel that the whole team it's time for a full rebuild.
Full rebuild. Like, hey, the Red Wings have done it the last couple of years. They didn't fire Blashill, the coach, yet. They've kept him, but they brought in Steve Yzerman, who's one of the best GMs in hockey. And the Wings are now very competitive. They still can't win on the road, but they're now 11-3-2 in Detroit, and they're on the right path. There were some lean years Detroit fans had to, and including myself, had to suffer through. But now we've got this Mo Seider, young big defenseman from Germany, Lucas Raymond, who's their best teenage player since Steve Yzerman. So there is hope. And the thing is, the Flyers have to decide, what do you guys want to do? They seem to be in limbo right now. From what I see as an outsider.
I agree. And you think about like teams that have made a big jump very quickly, in directions. Like, so you think Montreal, where Montreal, 2 years ago was fighting for the cup.
Yeah.
And now they stink. And then you have a team like the Rangers who stunk out loud last year. They couldn't
look at them.
2 wins together to save their lives.
Yep.
Now all of a sudden they're like on top of the NHL.
Yep.
In total. So, I mean, it's not that it's so difficult to do in this day and age. You're able to make the turns that you need to make, but you got to be able to have everything pulling in the right direction. I feel that that's the problem. I feel that you have the upper tiers of management not all together on the same page. I mean, congratulations on Paul Holmgren for getting into the Flyers Hall of Fame and all that other stuff. Blah 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 blah. I've already told you how I feel about Holmgren. As far as he's never been able to win a championship in any category ever. Not in juniors, not in seniors, not in the WHA, not in the NHL, not as a coach, not as a vice president, not as a president, not as a GM. He's never won it. And as much as he's done for a lot of people within hockey, and I can appreciate everything that he's done as a human being, I feel that he's making decisions. I feel that he's single-handedly screwed the Flyers, within the last decade. And he is still part of the problem that they have as a franchise. And that's the problem with Comcast, is that Comcast don't want anything to change. I tell you, if Ed Snyder was still alive, he would have fired Paul Holmgren and fired everybody. He would have cleaned house and got some new faces in here. And I feel that that's the problem, that the old way of doing things is just that, old.
Well, and what I was going to say, and the Flyers haven't won a cup since 75. Philly is a great hockey city, and I know in Detroit we're upset because we haven't won the cup since 2008, but you guys, like, 1975 is a long time, and I really think it's time for the ownership of the Flyers to step up and make a decision what they want to do with this franchise, because you're right. The way I look at it, the word is limbo. They're in limbo right now. They don't have an identity.
I agree. And I don't think that there's going to be any way that's going to change with the way that, with this GM and with this management team and really with this ownership. I feel like that as long as Comcast owns this franchise, we're going to run into this type of problem over and over and over again. I feel like it's Groundhog Day.
I'm lucky most of my franchises that I support, they're owned by the Illages, Tom Gores, and they're owned by guys that want to win. And I know the Pistons are awful this year. We're going to probably get the first pick again, but I see hope with the Pistons because Dwayne Casey's a good coach. Troy Weaver is a good GM. It's just going to take time, and the owner's now letting the GM and the coach deal with the young players, and there is a plan in place. So I do see hope for the Pistons, even though we have the worst record in basketball. And that's what you want to see as a fan. Maybe not losing, but you want to see some kind of plan from ownership telling the fans, hey, there is hope.
Right. Yeah, and I agree with that. That it's sometimes you need to be able to see the forest through the trees and take a look at the bigger picture. The Sixers are kind of trying to do that and not force this Simmons trade too hastily. And I can appreciate that, that this process is still in progress. And that's part of the issue here is that they are stuck in a little bit of a limbo here. And ultimately, if you do something too hastily, you're going to get chastised for it. If you're holding off and waiting for something better to come along, you're going to get chastised for it. So you're damned if you do, damned if you don't type of situation. I'd rather damned and don't, so that when I do, it's worth it.
I was going to say, and the Eastern Conference right now, like I said, I know in the past, Toronto had their failures. They got their championship. Milwaukee had their failures. They got their championship. It would be nice to see Philadelphia get their first championship since 1983, because you guys, Philly's a great sports town. In 1983 and 75 is too long ago to go without a championship, and they need to, in that drought. And I think the East is still up for grabs in the NBA. So we'll see what happens. But do you see Simmons playing for the Sixers ever again, or do you think they're just going to wait until they get an offer they like and trade him?
Yeah, I think they're going to trade him.
Yeah,
I think that if they wanted him to come back, they would have forced the issue. I think that he is never going to play as a Sixer again. It's possible he may never play as a player again. I think that is becoming more and more distinct possibility here. And you want to talk about somebody who's going to fall off of the face of the earth. It's just that's what's going to wind up happening. I know that he's got some talent and everything, but ultimately, when you play this way, they have going to lose. The Players Association, the CBA, is going to lose ground here because of Simmons. They're going to make the Simmons rule, where you're going to cut a player like that and force him not to be able to, you're not going to be able to get him re-signed for the year. If they're going to play that way, where they're going to be like, well, I don't want to play here, and I just signed a contract and I'm just going to be miserable and not play, they're going to allow these teams to not pay them. And that's what's going to come of this CBA. It's going to be an issue. It's funny because the baseball's locked out because the salaries were going astronomical. Well, that's what's happening with basketball too. That the inmates run the asylum here.
Absolutely.
And now you've got Simmons, who just signed this $100 million contract. And then he's like, well, I just want to get my money. You know what I mean? Yep. And now I'm going to play that. So now my head screwed up. So I can't, but pay me my money, but I can't play. That is okay. Now you're using the rules for your benefit. The rules are going to change now. And I think that's going to be a really big deal. And because of that, players are they're saying right now that, oh, I wouldn't mind playing with them. But you're going to wind up being like, I don't want to play with him. He was the reason why I lost money now, or that I can't do something now. And that's going to happen. That is absolutely going to happen.
Okay. I wanted to ask you about that. And that leads to my next question, Jamie. Yes or no, will there be a Major League Baseball season in 2022? I guess I'm putting you on the spot on this one.
Yeah, I'm going to say there is, but I tell you, if I was an owner of a small market team, I would absolutely be livid. I would be specifically, I'd be like, no, no, we do not. How do you compete? How do you compete? It's like there's 30 teams and 27 people on each team, I think is what it is. So realistically, you have 900 jobs. Out of those 900 jobs, 30 of those jobs of those guys are making ridiculous numbers. I think, what is it now? There's 18 players that are making over $30 million a year.
Yep. Yep. And the Tigers, they tried to sign Correa from the Astros. They offered him 10 years, 275 million. He turned them down. So the Tigers said, okay, you know what? We moved on to Javier Baez. They signed him from the Mets. I'm not saying he's the answer either. They gave him, I think, 6 years, 140 million, and it's like ridiculous. The guy Correa is a good player. Don't get me wrong. They offered him 10 years, 275 guaranteed, and he turned them down. I'm like, oh my god, I would play baseball for 50,000 a year plus a free uniform and free food.
Yeah, well, and that's the problem here, is that some of these players are, otherworldly players. You know what I mean? Some of these players are great players.
Yes.
But is any player, even Mike Trout,
Yeah.
Mike Trout worth $50 million a year? What the
Mets
Scherzer.
pitcher?
Scherzer.
$43.5 million.
Is he really worth it? Is it really worth it? Is he worth that much money? Now, obviously, you're only worth what you want to get, what somebody's going to pay you.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, realistically, so now, all right, you're paying him that, but now none of these other players can really get their money because we're not going to pay the luxury tax.
Yep.
So that means we're going to have 5 guys on this roster. All the back end of the bullpen is going to be making under $2 million a year. And now we wonder why we can't seem to do anything, because you cash strapped yourselves.
Yeah. And it's like, hey, I wanted Justin Verlander to finish his career in Detroit. Houston decided to give him 2 years, $50 million. The guy's had a Hall of Fame career, don't get me wrong, and stuff like that. But to give him $25 million a year when he was coming off Tommy John surgery at age 40 is kind of like, I understand why he stayed in Houston because of the money, but it's just, I would have liked him as a Tigers fan to finish his career off in Detroit. But obviously Houston wanted to keep him there for $50 million for 2 years. But I don't blame the Tigers for not wanting to give him $50 million for 2 years when he's at 40 at the end of his career and he's coming off serious Tommy John surgery at that age.
Right. You know what I mean? And realistically, you could sign him at the end of that for $3 million a year and put him in the back end of the bullpen.
Yep.
and give him 3 years for $10 million and have him teach everybody.
Yep.
In essence, have him be a player coach, kind of. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like that's kind of the thing that you want out of that. I understand why you want him there, because he was a Detroit icon.
Yeah.
For such a long time.
Yeah.
So, that's what you got to wait. You got to wait till he's at the point where, what do they say about, Hall of Fame players? They play till they can't play anymore, and then they play an additional 2 years.
That's true.
That's kind of what's going on. He's in the middle of playing his 2 years now with Houston, and then you come and you sign him for like another couple of years, where you're paying him a little bit of money to be like a player coach, and you just have him teaching the guys in the bullpen and these pitchers on what it is that he might be able to see, because at that point he's worth that money.
Yep.
To be able to just to share his experiences, and you keep him close to the game.
Yeah, but the problem with Major League Baseball, you're right, is it's like, I guess, the haves and the have not beens, and there's too many small market teams that don't have a chance. Detroit's not a large market, obviously. They're more of a medium market, but it just seems like unless you're a large market team, you have no chance of competing, and that is not good for the sport long term, in
Or
my
Oakland.
opinion.
Or
Yes.
Oakland.
Yeah.
You could
And
be
they're
Oakland.
yeah. And they're one, and they have a tremendous history with first being in Philadelphia, then moving to Kansas City, and then being in Oakland and winning 9 championships. They will never. I don't think they'll ever get to a World Series or win one again in Oakland if Major League Baseball doesn't do something to change the sport, because there's unless you have a big payroll, you're not going to be able to compete with Boston, Los Angeles, and New York teams.
Correct. Correct. And you think that Philly should be in that mix, but they're not, because they want to act small market. Because again, it's a corporation that kind of owns it. And even though it's not, you got Middleton, who's the head of the guys that are over there, but it's been old money. It's old money that owns that team, and they want to make money. That's what they want to do. They want to make money first, and then worry about how to spend the money to try to win a championship. They don't try to win first. They make money first, win second.
Well, like I said, I just like to see something change with Major League Baseball to make it a little more parity and be more competitive for the small market teams. Because Kansas City Royals have a great tradition, and the Oakland A's have a great tradition, and it'd be nice to see those teams have a chance to succeed. And look at Tampa Bay; they got no chance in Tampa Bay. The Tampa Bay Rays, they've got a lousy stadium, they've got no attendance, and Major League Baseball needs to address that situation with
Well,
that
yeah, but
franchise.
how is it that they wind up going to the playoffs? They went to the World Series 2 years ago, again, the COVID year, but we beat them in the World Series. I mean, Tampa Bay, as much as that, as much as you say about that, they made it to the playoffs again last year. They were in the World Series the year before. They've been to the World Series a couple of times now. So it's, they're doing something, and they're obviously not cheating like Houston did.
That's true. Tampa Bay reminds me of the Montreal Expos, because Montreal in the 70s and 80s, they would be competing with the Phillies for the NFC East title, or even getting to the NLCS, and they would develop a lot of great players. But the problem is, when they weren't winning, the fans weren't coming out, and then they played in that awful stadium in Montreal. So I guess in a way, I want to see Tampa Bay back in Montreal, because I would like to see the rebirth of the Montreal Expos if they have proper ownership in a proper stadium, because I think Montreal is a better baseball town than Tampa Bay is.
Well, I could believe that. I could believe that. But there again, it's, Tampa Bay right now is, really like that right now, like the new city of champions.
So now, it's the Lightning and the Bucks, but I have a feeling the Bucks aren't going to repeat this year. I just have a feeling.
No, I agree with you. I don't think the Bucks are going to do that. Okay. But that's even still, they make it to the playoffs, they get close. That's still, a jump. You know what I mean? So same way with Boston. Boston is, the teams don't have to win championships. All they got to do is sniff it.
Yeah. And I only got 2 more questions for you, Jamie. This one I wanted to ask you. Which current Philadelphia team has the best chance to get back to a championship in the next few years in the city out of all the franchises?
Wow. I would say that the Sixers are closest, but I think in a realistic sense, the Eagles. I think the Sixers are closest now, but I think the next championship from everybody comes from the Eagles.
Okay. I had to ask you on that one. Okay.
And that may be a few years away. I don't think that that's happening next year, or anything like that. Anything's possible, but I think that the Sixers are closest right now, but I think that the Eagles are going to be the ones that do it.
Because like I said, it'd be nice to see the Sixers win, and it'd be nice to see the Eagles get back to the Super Bowl. The Phillies, overall, where do you think the Phillies are looking for 2022 if there is a season as of now?
Get bullpen help. Get bullpen help. I don't know that this coach is the answer. I'm not a Girardi fan.
No, never been a Girardi fan, eh?
Yeah, Yeah, I'm just not a fan of his, and I'm not a fan of the ownership either. I like the fact that they brought in a president of baseball operations and McPhail, and those goofballs are out of there now because they obviously were just screwing things up left and right. So I like the fact that we have a baseball guy involved. I like that Charlie Manuel actually has a say in this franchise because he's really a good baseball guy. You can't have enough baseball guys. I feel like that the problem is that you have somebody in leading the charge on the field who I just don't trust as a manager. And I think that he's part of the problem. I feel like he cost us 6 games last year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's a lot of games. That's a lot of games. And then when you ask him about it, he acts like, oh, he knows more about baseball than you. I was never a fan of Tommy La Russa either. You know what I mean? Where I thought that that he thought he invented the game. I'm gonna put the pitcher batting 8th because I'm smarter than everybody else. I thought he was the beneficiary of good players and a good general manager in St. Louis. I don't think he was a great manager. I think that he just happened to have the beneficiary of somebody who knew how to build a team. And because of that, I don't think he's that good of a manager now. You know what I mean? I think that he still stinks. So
you might disagree with me on this. The last year, the Tigers won 77 games with a team full of a lot of minor league players and veteran like Miguel Cabrera. But AJ Hinch, whether you like him or not, or maybe he cheated back in Houston, but he is a good manager and he's good with working with young kids. And I really think the Tigers have their manager for the next 5-10 years with AJ Hinch. And I'm lucky. I'm actually quite happy with him, even though I didn't like what happened in Houston. He did a really good job with Detroit's young players last year, and he's really good at fundamental baseball, bunting, moving runners over, and knowing how to use the bullpen. And I'm actually hoping there is a season because I think the Tigers this year could compete for a wild card position in the American League, possibly, if everything goes according to plan.
when you are going up against the 3-run home run, small ball will win most of those games. You could play. So, and I feel like that small ball will beat 3-run home runs 3 out of 5 games.
Yep.
So that's how Tampa Bay won their games.
Yep.
You know
Absolutely.
I mean? They just didn't have the pitching that could hold up in the playoffs when you're going up against 3-run home runs.
Yep.
So you better have really good pitching. Yeah, at least front line pitchers. Can't have the bullpen. The bullpen's going to be where the bullpen is, but you need to have starting pitching to be able to make sure that you can get into the 6th and 7th innings before you start to give up the 3-run home runs. And I feel that that's how Tampa Bay won most of their games last year because they knew how to play small ball. If you can get a small ball coach, small ball is going to beat the 3-run home run 3 out of 5 games, and that's 600. And if you're playing 600 ball throughout the course of a season in Major League Baseball, you're in the playoffs. And once you're in the playoffs, anything's possible.
Well, and also Comerica Park is one of the biggest ballparks out there for the dimensions. And to me, it's a no-brainer to play for singles, doubles, triples, speed, and fundamentals. And AJ Hinch, whether you like him or not, is a very good manager at doing fundamentals. And I think he also learned too that he's got a second opportunity with Detroit, and I don't think he's going to screw it up with doing anything stupid that he did in Houston. I really do think he's a good manager, and I really think the Tigers have found their manager for the next 5 to 10 years, in my opinion.
Well, and then you think about Showalter went to the Mets, right?
Yes, he did.
Yeah, so realistically, he's kind of the same way. He's that old school. He plays some small ball, although that team isn't really built for small ball. When you start to implement that even a little bit, it's going to make a difference. And I feel like that the Mets have stunk because of management. Now that problem is resolved for them.
Yep.
And I feel that now maybe they could be what they were supposed to be this year and never became.
And then look at Atlanta. They came out of nowhere to win the World Series. They were under 500, I believe, until August 5th or something like that. And then they went on a roll. So to me, if there's a season, the NL East, everyone's going to pick Atlanta. But you know what? I still think it's up for grabs with the Braves, the Mets, and Phillies.
Yeah, I don't know that the Phillies have as much say in that. I
Say.
feel like it's more between the Mets and the Braves, and that the Phillies have to overachieve to be able to be in that mix.
Okay. And I'm going to wrap it up, Jamie, because we're at almost an hour and a half, and I don't want to keep you all night. But I want to ask you just basically, where can my audience find you again on social media? And can you just tell my audience a little bit about your business in Philadelphia?
So obviously, you can find the Philly Sports Guy on any social media platform. There is Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok, Bigo. I'm on all of them as the Philly Sports Guy, or on Facebook you can find me under Jamie. However, I show pictures of my kids there, and I don't know if anybody wants to really see stuff like that. And as of right now, I do a lot with Philly sports trips. So we are planning, for instance, we're planning to go to Brooklyn for the Sixers Nets game on the 30th of December. And then we're going to, right after New Year's on January 2nd, we're taking a bus ride down to Washington to take over that stadium. And hopefully we won't get pooped on. Hopefully those pipes are fixed and we won't get pooped on at that stadium. But we're going to be taking that over to watch the Eagles beat Washington again down there, and hopefully get ready to go to the playoffs.
And I took your advice. It took me a year to do it, but I got on TikTok 6 months ago, and I find it's a great platform to promote my podcast on TikTok.
Yes, I do a lot with TikTok. You can find me live at the games. Yeah, I like to do a lot of lives there. I'm always doing my 15-second or 30-second videos right from there, where I'm yelling at the camera, talking about how we were spanking somebody, or how this goaltender Swiss cheese, or whatever I feel like talking about right then and there. But it's a great spot for me to be able to put out like a small little quick video that I can share everywhere. But also where I'm able to do a live, where you're able to get to see like action happening right up close, as if you're in my seat. And that's really fun, because when I go to these games, I like to sit up close and personal. I want to be heard, and they definitely can hear me.
Okay. Well, like I said, I still need another 400 followers, and then I'll be able to go live. I'm at 545. So if anybody wants to follow me on TikTok at Live with CDP, and also follow the Sports Guy on TikTok as well.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me. I tell you, that's why I say, when you say, oh, we're going to go about 45 minutes, I'm like, I know we're not going to go 45 minutes. Once you start talking sports between us, we got a lot to say. So
definitely. But I want to say thank you so much, Jamie, for coming on. And maybe I can have you back on just before the Super Bowl, and we can talk about the Super Bowl and see who's going to win the Super Bowl this year, which is only 55 days away.
Yeah, exactly. And it's going to be great to talk about how the Eagles are going to win that game.
Hopefully, hey, cross your fingers. You never know. Hey, you got to keep the faith. Just
well,
one game at a time.
And real quick, only because I know that the NFL just did this big deal where they are allowing NFL teams to go up into Canada and start promoting their stuff. So, of course, the two big teams that jumped out to the forefront of that were the Seahawks and the Vikings, saying that, oh, well, that we are we have the biggest contingents in Canada. And I'm like,
Buffalo Bills.
There's a huge Eagles contingent up there.
That's true.
All that hot air from the Vikings and the Seahawks is just that. It's all hot air, because I know that the Eagles are loud and proud up that way.
Yeah, actually, Philadelphia, obviously Buffalo, because we're close to Buffalo. But I would say the Bills, the Eagles. Unfortunately, there are some Cowboy fans up here too. But to be honest with you, there is a lot of Eagle fans in Canada, not just in Ontario as well. But like I said, Jamie, I want to say thank you so much for coming on with Live with CDP podcast. I'm hoping I'll actually get to meet you in El Parcero in 2022 when I come up to my first game. Cross my fingers to see the Eagles play Dallas and have a cold beer with you in El Parcero.
I can't wait for that time. It's great that we're able to communicate this way, but once we're right next to each other and rooting on our team, it's going to be a fantastic experience, and I can't wait.
Okay, well, thank you again, Jamie, for coming on, and we'll talk to you soon, okay?
My pleasure. Happy holidays to you and to all your listeners.
Yeah, Merry Christmas, Jamie, and have a Happy New Year, and we'll talk to you soon, buddy.
Thanks, buddy. Have a good one.
You too. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed my podcast tonight with the Philly sports guy, my friend Jamie. He's a huge Philadelphia sports fan, Eagles, Sixers, Phillies, and like I said, I really appreciate him coming on tonight as well. And before I go, guys, I just want to say thank you to everyone watching this podcast live on my YouTube channel. Please subscribe if you haven't. Thank you for watching live on Facebook Live and on Twitter. And also, guys, just to let you know, after each podcast, Live with CDP podcast, the audio version is downloaded onto Google Podcasts, Anchor FM, Apple Podcasts, Breaker, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, Spotify, Castbox, and LinkedIn as well. And before we go, I'm just going to show a little video clip of a preview of the Washington Eagles game tomorrow night, Tuesday at 7 o'clock on Fox from the link. Just 1 second, guys. And this is courtesy of the NFL.
To Philadelphia this week to take on the Eagles. And if the team is going to hold on to its playoff spot, they'll have to be able to stop Philly's rush attack. An attack averaging 5 yards per carry and averaging the most rush yards per game in the NFL.
Right up the middle. Still going. Gainwell. Gone. Touchdown.
These birds are more roadrunner than Eagles. Who needs Red Bull when you can have 4 different guys break one off without wings?
And Jalen Hurts. Let him just put it away. Boston Scott right through the gut. Sanders picks up the first down and more. Sanders at midfield, still going. Jordan Howard, big hole for Howard.
That quartet faces off with a Washington defense that hasn't been easy to run on this year.
Up the middle, and he's stacked up.
They held Dallas to just 3.5 a run last week, and they specifically have been good against running backs this season, holding them close to 3.5 yards per carry.
Corey Clement, who runs right into a brick wall.
But Washington has struggled against QBs who take off.
Now comes some pressure, gets away, Prescott looking to run.
That could mean a nice game for Jalen Hurts as a runner. But what about Philly's passing attack? Minshew Mania was fun, but it was just duct tape. Hurts was Hurts, had his worst game as a pro before the bye, no TDs, 3 INTs, rating under 20.
Looking for Rager in double coverage, and it's intercepted.
Didn't lose his job, though. His numbers as a passer overall, under 7 yards per attempt, barely over 200 yards per game, but 13 TDs, 8 INTs.
Look at end zone. It's caught by Jalen Rager.
He faces a secondary that has spent much of the season struggling.
Gonna let it fly. He's got a man swing.
But one that has played well recently at least. Held Dak Prescott to under 6 yards per attempt, rating under 60, picked him off twice.
Prescott pumps, throws, intercepted. Holcomb's got it with a pass to the end zone.
They have 2 Eagles pass catchers to worry about when Hurts throws, Devontae Smith and tight end Dallas Goedert.
That's Devontae Smith. What a stiff arm. Minshew. Goddard's wide open, and Goddard has another touchdown.
Because the Eagles haven't been throwing much, they don't give up a lot of sacks. Washington does have a good pass rush, too. Even without their starting edge rushers, they got to Dak Prescott 4 times.
Prescott is taken down.
As you can see, Washington's D really can't be blamed for their latest loss. It falls on their offense and on their line/QB.
Pressure, Heineke is jacked. Down he goes. The ball is loose. It's picked up by Dallas and Armstrong.
4 turnovers versus Dallas, 5 sacks allowed, 9 QB hits.
Pressure coming, Heineke dropped again.
2 different QBs went for Washington, results pretty much the same.
Knocked away. Oh, Gregory, what a play!
They lost their best offensive weapon, too. Terry McLaurin left the game hurt, so have to track his status. Whoever Washington can trot out will face an Eagles defense that doesn't sport much of a pass rush and that allows a pretty high completion percentage.
Wilson end zone, caught, touchdown! down.
But Philly doesn't give up a lot of big pass plays, under 7 yards per attempt, and one of the best yards per catch averages allowed.
Taking a deep shot down the field, and it is incomplete.
Both teams 6-7. Both teams right in the thick of it. Play each other again in a few weeks, too. Tell us who takes round 1 in the comments section. Let's see what our crew has.
Anyways, guys, that clip was courtesy of the National Football League. The game was originally supposed to start Sunday at 1 o'clock, but obviously with Washington having 23 players on the COVID-19 list, the NFL postponed it to Tuesday night, tomorrow night at 7 o'clock at the Lincoln Financial Field on Fox and TSN here in Canada. I am predicting the Eagles to win 24-13. I think Jordan Howard and Miles Sanders and Boston Scott, the three monster running attack, will be too much for Washington, and I think Devontae Smith will have a good game. And it looks like Jalen Hurts is going to start this game. It looks like Hurts is going to start after having an ankle injury against the New York Jets. So I really think the Eagles will win this game 24-13. I do agree with Jamie that they might come out rusty in the first quarter, but I think their offensive line and their old school run the football, stop the run mentality will beat Washington. Washington has a lot of guys out of the lineup with injuries and with the COVID. So it's 24-13 final for the Eagles. The Eagles will go 7-7, and then they'll have 3 games left against the Giants, who are going to be without Daniel Jones the rest of the year, their starting quarterback. Then they'll take on Washington in 2 weeks from time in Washington, and then Dallas. So it's basically 2 games against Washington, 1 against the Giants and 1 against Dallas. For the Eagles to have a chance to make the NFC wild card playoff position, they're going to need to win minimum 3 out of 4 games and maybe need a little help. So ideally it would be nice to win all 4 and go 10-6, but realistically I agree with Jamie at the start of the season. I said 9-8. But I don't know. We'll see what happens. If they do go 9-8, which is a winning season, they might need help from the other teams, because right now the Vikings are 6-7, Washington 6-7, and the Eagles are 6-7 for that final spot. And the Saints right now are in that 7th spot at 7-7. So this is a playoff game, really, both for Washington and Philadelphia. And we'll see if the rookie coach, Nick Sirianni, will have a good game plan against Ron Rivera, who is well liked and is a really good head coach with the Washington Football Club as well. And just going to read some comments, guys. Let's see. Gaines Media. Let's go CDP. I heard that name drop on Lock Alliance. You got this, baby. Hey, thank you so much. Matt Derry is one of my friends, and he's a really good guy, and I was lucky to have him on my podcast. I did predict the Lions to upset the Cardinals yesterday, and I told Matt, if I'm wrong, post it on social media. I'll eat humble pie, and I had a gut feeling, and the Lions did win. So Gaines Media, thank you so much for watching live with CDP. And yeah, Matt's one of the best guys in the business, and I'm hoping one day to be in the radio industry like Matt was, or is still as well. And then Robert, looking tremendous, Chris. You're already for like 9 likes, baby. Thanks, Robert. And I see you subscribe to my YouTube channel. Really appreciate it. If you could spread the word about my podcast, that'd be great as well. Thank you so much, Robert. And Brandon, let's go Birds. Go Birds from Canada. Huge Eagles fan here. So yeah, and like Jamie said, there is a lot of Eagles fan in Canada and Ontario as well. So I'm looking forward to the game tomorrow night. And then my next guest, Mark, my first viewer on my podcast a year and a half ago. Hi, Mark. How you doing? Great guest you have. Nice guy. Yes, he is. Really good guy, Mark. And yeah, he's one of my friends, and he's one of the best podcasters out there as well. And he loves the Eagles as much as anybody does. Thank you so much, Mark, for watching. And let's see, Spirits Corner, great podcast. Chris was Philly sports guy. First time seeing him, I enjoy watching him. Yeah, his name's Jamie, but he's helped me with my podcast about a year and a half ago with getting on to StreamYard. Really good guy. He's passionate about sports, and he's a really down to earth good guy. And everybody always knocks the internet about bad apples and that, but you know what? I've been lucky to make some nice friends on here as well from the social media as well. So, anyways, let's see. So I'm looking forward again. Again, the Birds win 24-13 over Washington tomorrow night. And I believe Vegas beat the Browns tonight 16-14 in the early Monday night game. And the second game starts 8:15, which is in the first quarter right now. That is the Vikings and Bears. So got to root for the Chicago Bears because the Vikings are 6-7. So hopefully Justin Fields and the Bears can beat the Vikings and Kirk Cousins tonight as well. Some other NFL news: Kansas City today placed their tight end, All-Pro tight end Travis Kelce, on the reserve COVID list Monday. Kelce is vaccinated according to ESPN's Adam Scheffler, so he has a chance to return in time for the Chiefs' next game on Sunday against the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are still alive in the playoff hunt when they upset Tennessee yesterday, 19-13. Steelers are 7-6-1 right now, so we'll look at that. The Chiefs also have placed their kicker Harrison Bucker, and cornerback Cheveris Ward on the COVID list as well. Unfortunately, right now, the world with the COVID and the variant, it is affecting all the sports. I just have a feeling the NHL and the NBA might take a pause, and I'm crossing my fingers about the Ontario Hockey League as well. But the Ontario Hockey League right now is on a week and a half Christmas break, so we'll see what happens after that. And speaking of that, the Guelph Storm finished the first half of the season before the Christmas break on Saturday with an impressive 4-1 win over the London Knights to take over first overall in the Western Conference, 1 point ahead of the London Knights, even though the Knights have one game in hand in Guelph. Guelph has gone 4-0 against the London Knights this year, and that doesn't happen too often because the London Knights are one of the best junior teams in CHL the last 15-20 years, and it's not very often where you can beat them 4 straight times in the regular season. So personally, and I brought this up on Twitter, I think George Burnett should be up for OHL Coach of the Year if this continues, because the Storm have the youngest team in the Ontario Hockey League, just under 18 years of age average. And obviously they have a lot of talent, like Larry Malott was telling me, but George Burnett has done a great job with these kids, and they play the right way and they play hard every night. And if you haven't been to a Storm game this year at the Sleeman Center, I would check them out. Really good young team. And Owen Bennett's really stepped up as the Storm's #1 goalie. The other goalie is Jacob Oyster. He's a rookie. He's only 16, and he's got talent too, but he's a little bit younger than Owen Bennett. But the Storm, yeah, we'll just cross our fingers that the OHL can continue the second half of the season at the end of December, beginning of January. So we'll see what happens there. And also, guys, some other news. The last place New York Giants shut down their injured quarterback Daniel Jones the last 3 games of the season. And also, Tampa Bay last night lost their #1 receiver, Chris Godwin, out for the season with a torn ACL. Mike Evans left the game with an injury as well. And they're also missing Giovanni Bernardi as their running back as well. And like I mentioned before, guys, Monday Night Football, Raiders beat the Browns 16-14 tonight, the early game. And right now we got the Vikings and Bears at 8:15 on TSN right now. And also, guys, Tuesday Night Football doubleheader, Seattle at the Rams at 7 o'clock, and Washington Football Club at the Eagles at 7 o'clock. And both games will be on Fox as well. And also, guys, just to let you know, my next Life with CDP podcast to be announced. This probably will be my last podcast before Christmas. I am working on getting guests for next week and the week after. It's just a matter of my scheduling matching with my guests. I'm trying to get some more new guests to come on as well. And I just want to say, I want to wish everybody, in case this is my last podcast for a week, I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas or Happy Holidays if you don't celebrate Christmas, and a Happy New Year in 2020. And I want to thank everyone in the last year and a half for watching my podcast or listening to it on audio, and all the great guests I've had on my podcast. I've been very lucky to have some great guys from the OHL come on, CFL, NHL. I wish I could name them all, but I never thought a year and a half ago I would be able to get guests from the NFL, the NHL, Major League Baseball, CFL, OHL come on. And podcast to me is only as good as your guests are. And I'm just trying to keep improving and getting better every podcast. And I'm lucky also, my audience is growing, and hard work. It's basically, I just got to keep working hard at this, keep learning, and just keep listening to my guests or what people are giving me advice, and just be myself. And like you said, I'm looking forward to doing this podcast in 2022. And my ultimate goal is hopefully somebody in the radio industry one day will give me an opportunity, as this is something I have a passion for. And I'm very lucky to have this platform, and also my platform with Rogers TV as a camera operator. Rogers has really taught me a lot about a broadcast and doing camera work, and how much work it takes to set up a broadcast and to tear down. So again, I just want to say thank you to everybody. I'm very lucky with doing the podcast, Rogers TV. And again, thank you to all my guests the past year and a half, and for everybody watching live with CDP on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter Live, or on audio via Apple, Google Podcast, Spotify, Anchor FM, Radio Public, and LinkedIn as well. Also, guys, just to let you know, before I go, you guys can also follow me on TikTok at Live with CDP, and also at Twitter at Chris D. Pagliei as well. And also, StreamYard's the official live stream provider of Live with CDP podcast. If you guys ever decide to get into podcasting, StreamYard is the one I would go with. Excellent customer service as well. And also, guys, just to let you know, Live with CDP merchandise. I have some podcast shirts here, $15, coffee mugs 15, and I can order podcast hats for 18 if you're interested in that as well. So, yeah, guys, like I said, I want to say thank you to the Philly sports guy, my friend Jamie, for coming on again. And my next Live with CDP podcast, TBA, to be announced. And like I said, again, in case I don't do a podcast before Saturday, I just want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas again, Happy New Year's, Happy Holidays. And again, thank you for watching and listening to Live with CDP podcast. So I hope you all have a great night, great week ahead, and enjoy the holidays. And we'll see you guys either before Christmas or after Christmas. And I will definitely let you guys know when my next podcast is and who my next guest is as well. Okay. Anyways, I hope you have a great night, guys, and enjoy the rest of the week. And again, I wish everybody a Merry Christmas, and we'll see you guys very soon again here on Live with CDP podcast.